Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, where we discuss everything in the world of soccer, including the top games and competitions from all around the world, and all the compelling storylines. And we have a lot, Alex. We have a lot on the show today.
A lot going on, at least. You can say
that. Yeah. Some managers going in and out, some controversy, some new boys being called up, and a lot more in between. So we are on an international break this week, so in the last segment we'll be covering a lot of the games going on during the international break. We have World Cup qualifying going on in Europe and South America as well as Africa. So a lot of good games need to be played. A lot of important games too. Of course, you're qualifying for the World Cup. Mm-hmm. They're all important. Yeah. Going to be talking about Champions League Matchday 2. We had the second group stage game for all teams in the Champions League on Tuesday and Wednesday of last week. A lot of good games, a lot of interesting games as well. You know, a lot of big storylines, a lot of games that went to draws. Man City and Celtic being one of them really surprised me. We'll talk about that. And then we also had some games across Europe and in America going on Saturday, Sunday, even Friday that were really good. A lot of interesting, compelling storylines that helped shape already in the early part of the season a lot of these tables going on. So with that being said, let's lead off the show talking Champions League. So we always do one day each. So do you want to tackle Tuesday or Wednesday?
May I please do Wednesday because I watched more games that day.
Okay, I will do Tuesday. So on Tuesday, we had Sporting Lisbon with a 2-0 win over Legia Warsaw. We had Sevilla beat Lyon 1-0. We had Juventus absolutely dismantle the Croatian side Dinamo Zagreb 4-0. Did Juve win that game? We had Tottenham pick up their first win of the Champions League this year, defeating CSKA Moscow in Russia 1-0. A goal by Son. Youngmin Son, he's been playing really, really good for Tottenham. Dortmund and Real Madrid, definitely the biggest game of the day on Tuesday. They ended a 2-2 draw over in Germany. Real Madrid had a lead, and then Dortmund came back and scored right at the end by Andre Schürrle. We'll be talking about that game as well. So we had Monaco and Bayer Leverkusen end in a 1-1 draw. We had Copenhagen defeat the Belgian side Club Brugge 4-0. Then we had Leicester City remain undefeated in the Champions League. They've won both of their games now.
Yeah,
they defeat Porto 1-0. We have interesting storyline here because Leicester City's goal scorer, Islam Slimani, formerly of Sporting Lisbon, so he's causing more havoc for Porto. You know, at Lisbon he would cause havoc because they're in the Portuguese league together. So obviously knows the team really well and scores against them. So definitely really well.
That was a good game, and Leicester City's just really, they're not having the best Premier League so far this year, but they're really playing well in the Champions League.
Definitely.
All right, moving to Wednesday, we have PSG defeating Ludogorets 3-1. As you said, Man City and Celtic did draw at 3-3. That was a surprising game. I mean, Celtic never trailed. They scored, Man City came back, scored. They scored again, Man City equalized, and then they scored again, and then late equalization there. That's a little equalizer from Man City, but Celtic really were the attacker this game.
Yeah, they were really the aggressors, and being the best team in Scotland, obviously not really on par with a team like Manchester City, one of the elites in all of Europe, let alone England. Yeah. But being at home, I think that's what really helps Celtic in this instance. Crazy fans. You had Moussa Dembele score 2 goals. You had a third one go off Raheem Sterling in for an own goal. So I was surprised when I saw this. I was surprised that City, not necessarily that they drew, but that they gave up 3 goals. That was the thing I was most surprised with.
I was more surprised to see they gave up 3. I mean, it's good on them to battle back and get a draw out of it after giving up 3 goals, but Yeah, I mean, I was more surprised to see the fact that they gave up 3. If I would have understood like a 0-0 draw or maybe a 1-1, but 6 goals in that game, I didn't see that coming.
No, not at all.
6-0.
Yeah, 5-1 City.
Yeah.
I didn't expect Celtic to really put up 3 goals. I was quite impressive for the
did a lot
Scottish
for them
side.
moving into the next week of play.
And you look at, and really, if you sit down and break it down, you could see that maybe they had a little bit of an advantage with their manager being Brendan Rodgers, formerly of Liverpool. As late as last year, early in the season he got fired. Now you have Jurgen Klopp in there for Liverpool, but you had Brendan Rodgers before that, so he obviously knows the players playing for Manchester City. He knows Raheem Sterling. He's the guy who sold Raheem Sterling from Liverpool to Manchester City, so he's very aware of Raheem Sterling. A lot of the players on Manchester City he's watched obviously being the manager at Liverpool, so maybe he had a little bit of a mindset going in of who he thought he could maybe attack,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, a little bit of insight. I get you. All right, moving on to some more games. Napoli did defeat Benfica 4-2. FC Rostov and PSV Eindhoven drew at 2-2. Arsenal defeated FC Basel 2-0, Ben, with your fist bump over there.
that's right. 2 goals by Theo Walcott. He's playing absolutely fabulous for Arsenal right now.
Another draw, as you said, there were many this round. Besiktas 1-1 draw with Dynamo Kiev. Atletico Madrid in a very close game, just like earlier this year, a 1-0 win over Bayern Munich. A tight game throughout. Bayern seemed to kind of be more on the chase than more so on the attack. I think Atletico led the game really in possession. They played well, early goal on from there. I think it was just, like I said, just like earlier this year, same outcome, almost the exact same kind of game. Bayern just couldn't get anything going when they needed to.
Yeah, Atletico seemed to always have Bayern's number. Think about last year in the Champions League. We had in the semifinal matchup, Atletico Madrid coming on top of Bayern Munich when we had both teams going back and forth, especially that second leg in Munich. Mm-hmm. It was an absolutely crazy game. Here you had the game in Madrid, so you have Atletico as the home team. You have an absolutely fabulous goal by Yannick Ferreira Carrasco over there on the left side, the Belgian. He scored in the Champions League final, obviously against Real Madrid, so he's not going to let the big stage get to him. And he scores the only goal against Bayern Munich. Yet again, Atletico Madrid's defense, that back four, and then you have Jan Oblak at keeper, just absolutely outstanding. It seems like it's impossible to break them at almost all times. Even for a side like Bayern Munich with one of the best attacking midfield and front three in the world,
Yeah.
So credit to Atletico Madrid. They just seem to always squeak out games because their defense is so good. If you give them 1, maybe 2 goals to the good, gotta think they're coming away with 3 points. And that's exactly what happened.
Yep. And we move to the last game, of course, on the table here. But Barcelona did come away with a victory over Borussia Mönchengladbach 2-1. So as we look at it now, the Champions League table is as follows. In the Group A, Arsenal is in first in a tie, at least with PSG, with 4 points overall. Ludogorets and FC Basel at 1 and 1 point, respectively, there for third and fourth place. We have Group B. Napoli is comfortably in first place there with 6 points. Besiktas with 2, and Dynamo Kiev and Benfica at 1 and 1 there, points respectively for 3 and 4th. Barcelona is at the top of the Group C table, followed closely by Man City, 6 points to 4 points. Celtic with 1 there after their draw with the aforementioned Man City, and Mönchengladbach with 0 there in 4th. Group D, as follows, is first place belonging in good part to Atletico Madrid after their win over Bayern Munich at 6 points, followed by Bayern Munich at 3, PSV Eindhoven with 1, and FC Rostov with 1 as well. Moving to E, we have Monaco in first with 4, Tottenham right behind them with 3, Bayer Leverkusen with 2, and CSKA Moscow with 1. So 4-3-2-1 in descending order, as 4-3-2-1 in reverse order have other points.
Just blew my mind there with that one.
Like that. First place has 4, second 3, third 2, and fourth 1. Flip it around, and there you go.
You just blew my mind there.
You're welcome. Moving to Group F, Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund are tied in a sense for first, but Real Madrid has that first place with 4 points, followed by, like I said, Borussia Dortmund with 4 as well. Sporting Lisbon has 3, and Legia Warsaw 0 points there in 4th place. And Group G moving to Leicester City, first place with 6 points. Copenhagen 4, Porto 1, and Club Brugge no points to speak of. And finally, Group H, Juventus and Sevilla both have 4 points. It looks to me, though, with a goal differential, Juventus does have the first spot there. Lyon has 3 with 3 in the third spot with 3 points. And Dinamo Zagreb with 0, unfortunately having a pretty rough go of things. 0 goals for and 7 against. So there you go. There's your updated tables. And moving into the third week of the UEFA Champions League matches, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say after 2 games, I'd say every team that has come away with 2 victories. So you have Napoli in Group B, you have Barcelona in Group C, Atletico in Group D, and then you go down all the way to Group G with Leicester City with obviously two victories. I'd say all of those teams look really, really solid, like they're going in. I realize we have 4 more games left, so anything can happen. Obviously, you have collapses and sports and stuff. Mm-hmm. But if you have 2 victories right out the gates, you're looking pretty solid. And especially if you're looking at Group D, Atletico Madrid have a 3-point cushion over Bayern Munich. Rostov and Eindhoven each only have 1 point. I don't see either of those teams even getting near playing as well as Bayern Munich and Atletico Madrid are. So with Atletico Madrid already taking home 6 points out of 2 games, they're looking really, really solid to get into the round of 16 again. And you would imagine they would be, So they're such a good side. So.
Mm-hmm. And we'll head into a pretty big week here in week 3. But we have a week off. Couple, actually.
Yeah.
So we don't have games until October 18th. And, of course, when we get closer to that date, we will start previewing some of those for you.
Absolutely. There are a lot of great games. We talked about Dortmund and Real Madrid. I think that was probably, with the exception of Celtic and Man City, because that game had a lot of fireworks, I'd say the game between Dortmund and Real Madrid was probably the best game, the most competitive game. You had both teams with a lot of great chances. Real Madrid maybe more so than Dortmund. I feel like Dortmund were maybe sort of clawing back the whole entire game. They had their chances and did not convert on all of them, but they had some good shots. And then, like I said, you had Andre Schürrle score at the end, which was obviously a big, big point for them against a side like Real Madrid, who we'll talk about in the next segment, but seem to not be able to get a victory lately and can't lose either. They just keep drawing against everybody.
Yeah, I think that game and then definitely the Atletico Bayern Munich game, definitely a very competitive game. But, again, we will move on to talking about those when we get closer. It'll be about a week until then. So we'll take our first break. We'll come right back here, and we will preview more wonderful football in just a moment here at the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
We are back here at the Golden State Media Concept Soccer Podcast. Alex and I, glad you're joining us here. Talk about some soccer. We got some international games coming up we're going to talk about in the next segment. But with this segment, we have to talk about these weekend slate of games. A lot of great ones. A lot of matchups near the top of respective tables. Think about the matchup you had yesterday in the Premier League, Alex. Mm-hmm. You had Manchester City taking on Tottenham Hotspur, a matchup of 1 and 2 respectively in the Premier League. And you had Manchester City, in my eyes, I watched the game, get really dominated by Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, they lost 2-0 in favor, of course, of Tottenham. I was surprised by this, honestly. I didn't expect them to lose this game. Man City's been playing lights out. They're still currently first in the table, and we'll get into when we're done with our recaps and everything. But only by 1 point now. I mean, like we've said for weeks now, that 1 through 5 are really separated by just points each. 18, 17, 16, 16, 14. Everybody's right there. Even Man United and Chelsea with 13. Everybody's right there. And I mean, this was a big week for teams facing one another that are really close up there. And again, like you said, with Tottenham and Man City, yeah, I mean, this was a surprising outcome to me. I didn't expect Man City to get shut out.
No, I think really when you looked at the game and we previewed it, I thought it would maybe be a draw, and I was hoping, obviously, as an Arsenal supporter, it would be a draw because then you have both teams dropping points. But when you look at the game, you have each side with one of their big stars being injured. In Tottenham's instance, you have Harry Kane, their best striker and their best goal scorer, out still with an ankle injury. And then on the Manchester City side, you have Kevin De Bruyne out with the hamstring injury. It seemed like Manchester City really missed Kevin De Bruyne a lot more than Tottenham are missing Harry Kane right now. You have Young-Min Son, who we talked about in our first segment a little bit, how he scored in the Champions League against Moscow. He started up front for Tottenham yesterday, and although he did not score a goal, he played absolutely outstanding. He had an assist, which went to Dele Alli for his goal in the first half. You had an own goal in from Alexander Kolarov for Manchester City on a cross put in by Danny Rose. For me, what stood out to me is how Tottenham pressed high up the pitch. It seemed like every time Claudio Bravo got the ball for Manchester City, everybody was on the edge of their feet thinking he would make a mistake. And he did make a couple of mistakes, a couple of bad passes, but he could have given away a lot more. And for me, it was the Tottenham press. They were relentless. They were literally Energizer bunnies out there yesterday on the pitch. All of them. Eric Lamela, Son, Dele Alli, Christian Eriksen, Moussa Sissoko, all of them pressing high up the pitch. That's what made the difference to me. Because Manchester City had no room to operate out of their back four and in their midfield. Every time they were getting the ball, they were just getting hounded by two Tottenham players. They had to make quick passes. That leads to mistakes, turning over in your own half of the field. Never a good thing. And Tottenham really punished them on that.
I mean, personally, from what I saw of the game, again, it was Sunday, so I didn't get to catch as much of it because, football's got my attention. But, yeah, I mean, Man City just looked outplayed from the start. And, I mean...
Yeah, right away.
Tottenham's right on their heels. They really are. Some other notable games from yesterday, Man City... not the only Manchester United team to play, Manchester team to play, but Manchester United played Stoke City, and they drew 1-1. Not the outcome you want there. Manchester United, again, they are still there around the top sixth in the current table, but, to Stoke City, who is 19th, that's not one you want to draw.
No, Manchester United really should have gone away with a win in this game. I think you have to give a ton amount of credit to Stoke City keeper Lee Grant. He probably had a man-of-the-match performance. He made a number of key, important saves, especially right away. Zlatan Ibrahimovic had 2 shots on goal within 2 minutes, and Grant saves both of them. So you had a header from Paul Pogba, hit the bar at the end of the game. I feel kind of bad for Pogba because he's only scored the one goal, the one last week against Leicester City. Mm-hmm. He's had a couple of shots go off the bar so far. He's been kind of unlucky. He hasn't played phenomenal, but he hasn't played absolutely terrible. He's still being a part of that team. It seems like since Man United have dropped Wayne Rooney from the starting lineup, they've been a lot more consistent of a team. So I think you'll see that going forward. I think Rooney can be very valuable coming off the bench. Mm-hmm. You had a goal by Anthony Martial that Rooney and he sort of teamed up with. So you have some added advantage with Rooney coming off the bench. But I think Manchester United to only come away with a draw against Stoke City, definitely disappointing. And in a day where a lot of big-name teams were playing, like I said, you had Tottenham and Man City, so you had a lot of room to sort of gain ground, and they didn't really do that. They're kind of struggling right now, kind of falling back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think so. Moving to the other 2 matches of Sunday before we go back in time through Saturday and Friday. But Leicester City and Southampton drew. The big game, though, I know one that you had your eye on, of course, was Arsenal defeating Burnley FC 1-0.
Yeah, so Arsenal winning their 5th consecutive game now in the league. This is their best start through 7 games in 9 years. So they currently are 3rd in the table, obviously on goal differential. They're tied with Liverpool, but they're 2 points back of City. They currently have 16 points. So Arsenal really that first game blunder against Liverpool where they lost 4-3, and then the 0-0 draw in their second game against Leicester City. They've won every single game from there on out. So they've been playing lights out. Yesterday, though, I did watch the game, of course, and they got an absolute ton of amount of luck. Right at the end, the ball literally bounces off Laurent Koscielny's hand to go into the back of the net. So a goal where he was offsides and a goal where it shouldn't have even counted because of handball goes in the 92nd minute, right at the end of regulation, for Arsenal to win. So they come away with 3 points, which that's what they're going to be caring about. But for Sean Dyche and Burnley, they're going to be absolutely gutted because this is a game where a point was really deserved. I'd say Burnley had more clean-cut chances. Obviously, Arsenal did have the one goal. It was kind of a defensive game. Neither team really had a lot of good, solid chances. Not a really offensive game, but Burnley did have the best chances, in my opinion. And definitely a point they deserved. I'd say within maybe 60 to 65 minutes for the last 25 or so, they were really playing defensive and kind of holding for that draw, which is a big point for Burnley. Their primary goal is to win the league, but they need to stay up in the Premier League this year. They're not trying to get relegated again, which they did 2 years ago.
I mean, they're currently 14th as of now with 7 points.
Yeah, so it's a really important game for Burnley, and every point is massive. So they're trying to conserve that 1 point, that draw, and I feel like they really should have. Arsenal got lucky, got the win, got the goal on a ball that shouldn't have even counted from Laurent Koscielny. But of course, they are going to take it, and now we have the international break for them to sort of rest a few of their players. For me, the big takeaway for Arsenal is their defense. It looks so good right now. That center-back partnership with Laurent Koscielny, the goal scorer, and Shkodran Mustafi, who they brought in at transfer deadline, they're looking really, really solid. They're looking really physical. That's the thing I like most, is that they're really playing physical. They're not letting anyone bully them. So that's the big takeaways for me. But Arsenal, for me, I think these are the games that championship teams win. The games where you don't play good and the games you're not supposed to win. Think about in the NFL, how many times do the New England Patriots, the Seattle Seahawks, come from behind and win all these games that are ugly or the ones they shouldn't, like the playoffs last year with the Vikings? The championship teams find a way to win. They did it against Southampton. They got a penalty right at the end of the game. They did it against Burnley yesterday, so you got to give them credit for that.
That's very true. All right, moving into, so we'll recap before we move to the next leagues, to Saturday and Fridays. Watford and Bournemouth drew 2-2. Sunderland and West Brom 1-1 draw. West Ham Middlesbrough 1-1 draw. Chelsea defeated Hull City 2-0. Liverpool over Swansea City 2-1. And, of course, on Friday, Everton and Crystal Palace 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I'd say actually last week we talked about this Friday game between Everton and Crystal Palace, a game that could be really, really interesting. Both teams sort of sitting near the top of the Premier League right now. Everton get a great free kick goal from Romelu Lukaku, and then his Belgian partner mate, Christian Benteke, heads home to even it for Palace. Both teams are playing pretty good right now. I feel like Everton probably should have came away with a win, but I feel like a point is good. Obviously, Everton, the only game they've lost was the week before last they lost against Bournemouth. So not too bad. A good start for Ronald Koeman. And then as far as Saturday, Liverpool continue playing well. That's massive. They've been playing absolutely great, with the one exception is the loss to Burnley on the second game of the year. Chelsea get a much important win against Hull City 2-0. Chelsea only 1 point in their last couple of games, having drawn to Swansea and then lost to Arsenal. So really important that they stay winning and staying near the top of that Premier League table if they want to try and contend for the title. For me, the big takeaway is West Ham. They just cannot seem to find a way to win games. West Ham currently sitting near the bottom of the table at 18 points, only one win through 7 games. Dimitri Payet scored an absolutely wonder goal. Just that run he made 2 guys fall down. He carved through 4 or 5 players from Middlesbrough, but yet it's only good enough for a draw.
Yeah, I mean that's how the cookie crumbles, I guess. And we're getting really down to the nitty gritty time. If you can really start separating yourself from other teams, this is the time to do it. All right, let's move to Bundesliga. Bundesliga currently is just as underway as the Premier League, both of them in their 6th and 7th weeks, respectively. Friday kicked it off with Leipzig getting a 2-1 win over FC Augsburg. Moving to Saturday, we had SC Freiburg getting a win over Eintracht. Hamburg did lose to Hertha BSC 2-0. Augenstadt lost to Hoffenheim 2-1. Darmstadt and Werder Bremen 2-2 draw. Bayer Leverkusen over Borussia Dortmund 2-0. Bayern Munich on the heels of their loss to Atletico Madrid, drew with FC Köln 1-1. And then Sunday, only 2 games there. We had Wolfsburg and Mainz with a 0-0 draw, and FC Schalke over Borussia Mönchengladbach 4-0.
A couple of big takeaways here. Obviously, Bayer Leverkusen winning 2-0 over Borussia Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund had been flying great lately, scoring a lot of goals in the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
But then they lose 2-0 to Bayer Leverkusen, who just had defeated Mainz 3-2 on the heels of Chicharito's hat trick. So that's a big game. I was surprised that Dortmund really lost that game. I thought they would be able to handle Bayer Leverkusen. And then for me, really the surprise team of the whole Bundesliga this year has been FC Cologne. And then they draw 1-1 against Bayern Munich. They basically shut Bayern Munich down, only give up 1 goal, get a goal back, so they end Bayern Munich's winless streak in the Bundesliga. They had won every game so far before that. And Cologne still haven't even lost a game in the Bundesliga, sitting at 12 points right now, 3rd in the table. Very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like you said, as the table looks now, Bayern Munich, of course, in first place with 16. Hertha BSC 13. Borussia Dortmund with 12. FC Cologne, like you said, haven't lost a match yet at 12. As well as rounding out the top 5, Leipzig with 12 as well. Let's move into La Liga before we take our last break. And that had a pretty good match weekend as well. Real Sociedad did defeat Real Betis 1-0. Granada did lose to Leganes 1-0. Sevilla over Alaves 2-1. Osasuna and La Palma 2-2 draw. And Deportivo over Sporting Lisbon 2-1 in the finals match of the Saturday matches. And then we move to Sunday. Valencia lost 2-0 to Atletico Madrid. Real Madrid and Eibar drew 1-1. Malaga and Atletico Bilbao 2-1 in favor of Malaga. Espanyol and Villarreal 0-0 draw. And Celta Vigo over Barcelona, as you mentioned to me before this, at a 4-3 match in favor of Celta Vigo.
Yeah, Barcelona were down 3-0 at the half in this game. Absolutely surprising. You don't see Barcelona down 3-0 at the half to anybody, let alone Celta Vigo, who are not really one of the big boys over here in La Liga. You know, they're sitting mid-table right now at 10th. So something very surprising was that result. Obviously, Barcelona has scored 2 goals pretty soon. They get one from Gerard Piqué. He actually had 2 in the game. He seems to be able to get his head on everything. You know, he can really smash home a lot of free kicks and headers
I hear
from the
he's
corners.
best at PKs.
Oh, that was a good one.
Thanks.
I like that. But then they get a goal from Neymar, so they clawed back. They were down 3-2 at one point, but then Celta Vigo score again. Then Barcelona just trying to come back. They get another header goal from Piqué. So he scored midweek as well against Mönchengladbach. So Piqué kind of in form on these goal scoring right now. He's got 3 in the last couple of games. But the big result is that they lost, obviously, to Celta Vigo. A game where Barcelona should be able to win. A game where they should have won. And a game where they had a lot of chance to make up points. Because Real Madrid, as you mentioned, Alex, draw 1-1 to Eibar. Real Madrid have now drewn their last 3 games in La Liga.
Is it Droon?
Drawn. I'm saying drewn.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
They've got a draw in their last 3 games in La Liga, so only 3 points in 3 games. A lot of room to make up there for Barcelona, but yet they stumble. So you have someone else who's being very opportunistic, and that's Atletico Madrid. They win 2-0 over Valencia, who were a good side last year, but Valencia sold a lot of their good players, and now they're just absolutely collapsing, currently sitting 18th with 6 points. So Atletico Madrid get the win. They've only given up 2 goals all year through 7 games.
That's pretty good.
That's very good. They sit top of the table joint with Real Madrid at 15 points, but they are obviously ahead due to goal differential 12-9. Atletico Madrid just dared. I talked about it when I talked about Bayern Munich. Their defense is just so good. Diego Godin, Felipe Luis, Juan Fran, Jan Oblak, their defense is so solid. Diego Simeone, a great defensive mind. They're just impossible to really beat because they don't give anything up. They don't make mistakes.
Yeah, no, they're playing lights out. And currently, as it stands, Atletico Madrid in first with 15, with the goal differential really in favor for them over Real Madrid, who is right behind them at 15 with 2 points. Sevilla currently, with 15 points as well. Sevilla currently in third with 14. And Barcelona, like you said, with only 13 points, had a chance to really gain ground there on those 2 teams in fourth with 13, just followed by Villarreal in fifth as well as 13 points. So it's a tight match.
Yeah, definitely. I realize we're only 7 games in, but all these games do count. They're all just as important as the next one. So you got to pick up these points where you should. So Barcelona and Real Madrid kind of lacking on that. And Atletico Madrid being very opportunistic in winning games where they kind of faltered in the beginning half of the season. Now they're really regaining their form and showing the class they have.
Very true. All right, let's take our last break. We'll come back and we will discuss some more wonderful soccer news in just a minute. So we'll take our last break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. I want to talk to you today about compression gear. Compression gear is popular with professionals and amateur athletes everywhere to prevent injuries and for helping heal injuries. Sleeves has the coolest collection of compression gear around. Sleeves carry sizes for women and men as well as kids. Get compression sleeves in over 200 designs to match your teammates and uniforms. Check out a huge collection of styles and sizes or order something custom for your team at Sleeves. Get 20% off plus free shipping on purchases of $50 or more when you use the code SoccerPodcast. Visit Sleeves, that's spelled SLEEFS.com today. That's SLEEFS.com. Sleeves.
And we are back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, jumping into the last segment of the show, talking about some manager news. We have a couple being fired over in England, one in the Premier League, one in the Championship. A team that was in the Premier League last year, not doing so well in the Championship right now, and obviously they fired their manager because of it. And with that being said, we have other managers. We have Sam Allardyce out as England national team manager after his comments about transfers that was actually filmed. You know, England and the FA not really happy. He's probably going to be facing some charges as well as that too. Only 67 days after being the England national team manager. So we have Gareth Southgate. He's currently the England under-21 manager. He's going to be taking over on an interim basis just for the next 4 games while the FA try and sort out who they want to be the next manager for England. So since Roy Hodgson stepped down after the Euros, already going to be on their second new manager after Allardyce's blunders.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, but Sam Allardyce does finish his career as England manager undefeated. Finishes 1-0. So quite an accomplishment for Sam.
That's pretty good.
All right, Alex. So the big news here, and it actually has a tie back to us here in America, is that former U.S. men's national team manager Bob Bradley, he's going over to manage in the Premier League. So Swansea City have just fired their manager, Francesco Gudalin, and they're bringing in Bob Bradley.
I like Bob Bradley.
Yeah, Bob Bradley.
Personally.
Bob Bradley is going to be the first ever American to manage in the Premier League and also be the first ever American to manage within the top 4 leagues in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, he's also managed with Egypt, Norwegian side Stayback. Of course, he's leaving Le Havre. But, I mean, I've always liked Bob Bradley. You know, I'm a fan of his kid, too, for the most part. I mean,
yeah, Michael Bradley of Toronto FC.
He's not amazing, but, you know, he's good. I mean, it even, apparently, the potential candidate was even Wales captain Ryan Giggs.
Yeah, Ryan Giggs, I think he'll be
a manager at one point.
I think he'll be a manager at one point. Obviously, the Manchester United legend, Ryan Giggs. He will be managing one point or another eventually. Ryan Giggs was in the contention here, but I think Bob Bradley's going to get it because he's obviously experienced before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bob Bradley, a good leader, a guy who's managed teams in the World Cup, knows what it takes to get it done. Obviously, I think this is a huge step for United States soccer. You have a coach now managing a top team in the Premier League. I realize Swansea City's not Manchester United or anything like that, but still Swansea City is a team that's constantly in the Premier League year in after year out. This is a big step for United States soccer, and it's really going to help sort of bolster that sport here in the United States in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it just helps, even helps even more with, the years of success in international soccer and the way that the MLS is really moving. I think it's just something that can even push it further, yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. So another guy who is out at a respective club in England, that's Roberto Di Matteo. He is out as Aston Villa manager only after being there for 124 days. Mm-hmm. So Aston Villa, obviously a side that were in the Premier League last year, had a terrible, terrible season. They finished dead last on the table. Seemed like everything they did, they just could not get it done. This is a team that was in the FA Cup final 2 years ago against Arsenal. So it's not like they're a team that is not very good, doesn't have some known players, because they do. And they fired Di Matteo after they are just having a terrible, terrible season
12 games.
In the second division of England. They currently sit 19th out of 24 teams in the table. They've played 11 games, and they have 1 win.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, obviously 7 ties. That's not too bad, but obviously a lot of those draws, you have 7 of them. You need to turn them into victories. And then 3 losses. So they have 10 points through 11 games in the championship. Definitely not good for Aston Villa. They need to find a way to get a better result. There's still a lot of games left.
Yep.
They need to get back up near the top of that championship table, which currently has Huddersfield with 25. You have Norwich City at 23 and Newcastle at 22. Newcastle and Norwich City, 2 teams that were in the Premier League last year. So definitely looking good to go back in to the Premier League this year, but they're going to need to get it done all season long. But Aston Villa, one side who's just absolutely playing terrible right now.
Yeah, they need to hire somebody that can really turn this around because they don't want another 124-day manager. They need somebody who's going to be there for a while and somebody who can really help turn this around. So something's got to change.
Absolutely, and that leads us to the last part of our show today. We're going to be talking about the international break, which we are currently on, which means we have international fixtures to talk about. We have, like I mentioned, we have World Cup qualifiers in Africa. We have World Cup qualifiers in South America. We have World Cup qualifiers in Europe. And then we just have friendlies mixed in. The United States are going to be playing Cuba. They're going to be playing New Zealand. Going to be seeing some more of Christian Pulisic, who we talked about a couple weeks ago on the episode, just turning 18, going into U.S. national team squad. Hopefully he can improve on the success he's already had with the national team in a couple of these friendlies now.
Yeah, I mean, he's been lights out. Like you said, he just had his birthday we talked about a few weeks ago. There's going to be some interesting matches. You know, I think people who are kind of casual football fans really like the international stuff more because it's prideful, kind of. You know, people that don't necessarily have a team to follow, they're like, well, you know, I can't not follow my nation in a sense, you know what I mean? So I think that really helps bring fans into it more. So I think anytime you have, you know, international friendlies, let alone games that really matter, it's a good thing for football in general.
I definitely agree with you. I think it brings in the casual fan because it's kind of like the Olympics, like you just said, that prideful, that nationality thing. I think that has a lot to do with it. So some of the games that you're obviously going to highlight, you have Austria against Wales. These were 2 teams that played in the Euros, not necessarily together, but that were in the competition together. Wales, kind of the golden boys there, progressing really long. Aaron Ramsey's not going to be playing. He's still battling a hamstring injury, but you do have Gareth Bale, obviously the magic man that he is, so good for Real Madrid. The big game here on the early part of the schedule to me is Italy against Spain. This is a matchup that in the Euros these 2 teams met. You had Italy beating Spain, so maybe Spain are going to have some revenge on their mind. You have some Spanish players like Cesc Fabregas, Diego Costa, who currently play for Chelsea, going up against their manager, who is for the Italian national team, and Antonio Conte. So you do have some storylines going on there. I feel like that could be a great game, Spain and Italy.
Yeah, I mean, that always seems to be a good matchup between 2 good teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's always a really important game. There's a lot of other great games here on the schedule, though. You have Iceland going on against Turkey. Iceland. Ooh. How can we not talk about Iceland? Yep. Literally, we talked about Wales as kind of the surprise of the Euros. Then Iceland was the absolute shocker of the Euros, getting into the quarterfinals, although they did lose to France. Hopefully they can sort of gain momentum and keep playing on the form they have, trying to qualify for the World Cup. Here in Europe, where they have some of the best soccer nations, it's going to be extremely hard. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see what can happen. They do have capable players. You know, Gylfi Sigurdsson of Swansea City, he's in the Premier League, so they do have some guys who can get it done. One side I'm looking at here is going to be on next Monday's game, so maybe we can preview a little bit, maybe talk about some of the lineups if they come out prior to our show, is the Netherlands against France. So France, obviously the Euro runner-ups, losing to Portugal, one of the best sides. And then you have the Netherlands, a team who's doing really well as far as World Cups go. They're finishing 3rd and 2nd in the last 2 World Cups, but they missed out on the Euros because they could not get it done. They could not progress through the qualifying stages and get into the competition themselves. So now you have Netherlands with their next chance to kind of prove their worth and move on here. We'll have to see if they can get into the World Cup. A lot of great players, you know what I mean? So we'll have to see how Netherlands do here next Monday against France. Definitely a tough matchup. So there's a lot of other great games, but I mean, we're kind of running out of time here, so we can't cover all of them. But next week's show, we will break down what some of the top games were at the international break. So with that being said, Alex, we're going to end the show.
We are going to end the show. Excuse me. As always, you can find us on our website, gsmcpodcast.com, where you can find all of our network shows. You can listen to us on Instagram. I'm sorry, on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Stitcher at the GSMC Soccer Podcast. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at GSMC_soccer. And you can find us on Facebook and YouTube as well if you search GSMC Soccer Podcast. And on Facebook, you can find all of our pages as well as the network page if you search the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. We'd like to thank you guys for listening. We will be back on Monday for another jam-packed show. And we would like to thank you, as always, for listening. I'm Alex.
I'm Ben.
And we will see you guys next week. You have a good rest of your sports week and enjoy some soccer for us.